Okay, ich glaube, wir sind live.
Ja.
Sind wir, ne?
Ja, es war kurz da.
Okay, ich glaube, wir sind live.
Ja.
Wir haben es geschafft.
Ja, da.
Okay. Hey everyone, welcome to the first episode of TotalMix FX Essentials. Sorry for the delay, but we had some technical difficulties.
Ja.
Today I'm together with Joost.
Ja.
Hello.
And we will talk about many things regarding TotalMix FX and RME interfaces. We will talk about driver installation, connector type differences, what maybe the speed differences might be, and how to use an interface,
Hello.
what is latency, and also direct monitoring with RME interfaces. And in general, we will concentrate on TotalMix FX, what the benefits are, like routing, snapshots, and layouts. So, without further ado, I will give to my wonderful colleague Joost, and he will tell you everything you need to know about RME interfaces. We will concentrate on TotalMix FX,
1 second, please.
what the benefits are, like routing.
Okay. Hello. I'm Joost here at RME Audio AG headquarters in Germany. I am here in my test room where we test RME devices and where we have set up this the streaming for today. What it's about? It's about total mix and the basics of it, and how you to understand a little bit the philosophy behind RME products. So I would like to first start with a small presentation. It's really about the basics in interfacing and computer audio. Welcome at RME. What RME is of course is very famous about is its driver technology. We make drivers for two types of operating systems, Windows 10 and Apple OS 10. So that's probably well known. But there is a difference in the platform. So with Windows, you have two possibilities to have audio. You have an RZO driver and you have a WDM driver. So if you install the drivers for Windows, you have if your program support, you can have the professional RZO support for transporting audio in your computer, or you have VDM, which is it's your sound systems are coming through, and some software doesn't support any ASIO. So that's why you can also use VDM. With Apple, it's a little bit different. You have core audio, and everything happens through core audio. So all your software routing, if your software is capable of assigning channels, you are very flexible as in Windows, like RZO. But what, for instance, now with the Corona thing is very difficult with Mac OS is that some software is not capable, especially streaming software, is not capable of routing channels into core audio. But we have some online tutorials for that. So, of course, if you bought an interface, you want to connect it, and you can go on our website. If you already have a driver installed, there is no deinstallation needed. It's a very simple installation. If you just go to our website and you click down to the driver that you need, it's all self-explaining. So if I can show you for a second. So I go to downloads. I have my driver. I have I select my product. For today, I have a Babyface Pro FS here. I select my Babyface Pro FS. Of course, now I am on Mac. I select my Mac channel and I select the driver. The flash update that you see here, a lot of people use that too, is secondary. Yeah, you first install the driver. If the driver is installed and your interface is working, you can use the flash update. Now, I choose the driver, and because the Babyface is USB, I download this driver and install this on my Mac. When I'm done, I have two. I have to escape this little. I have two icons: Fireface USB settings for the Babyface, and I have TotalMix. I will come later to that. So, oh, okay.
Okay, and by the way, guys, I see you have a lot of questions in the chat room, which is great. You can always can ask questions. I've seen you all are here for some Babyface Pro FS or Babyface Pro um, tips and tricks, and this is good because Joost actually has the Babyface Pro with him. So we will show later how you can set it up and what's so great about it. So now back to Joost.
Okay, now a little bit very short. I will not go to very short. I will not go too deep in that subject. Is bus formats and latency. It's an often discussed topic when it comes to interfacing. So you have all these kinds of bus formats: Thunderbolt, FireWire, PCI Express, USB 2, USB 3. They all have their advantages and disadvantages, but first of all, with RME, we now concentrate on actually three types of connection. That is USB 2, USB 3, PCI Express, and Thunderbolt. FireWire is disappearing. It's still a big advantage because you can adapt it very easily to Thunderbolt. So even if you have an old FireWire interface, you can connect it to Thunderbolt and connect it to your Mac. Also PC, but it's a little bit more difficult. So this is how it looks. You have your USB 3, you have your Thunderbolt, you can have your USB-C. USB-C can also be Thunderbolt 3. On Mac, it's almost both. It's always both. It's USB-C and Thunderbolt. But on PC, it can be Thunderbolt 2, but not always. And the old FireWire connections. Now, what's the main difference? Why do you need, for instance, USB 3 interface, and when do you need a USB 2 interface? Well, see it like this: if I have an interface with two channels, and the audio samples are here displayed as cars, are allowed to go 100, then this is sufficient for this interface. But if I have a lot more channels in my interface, if I want to do more than 70 channels or more than that, I need a bigger connection like USB 3 or Thunderbolt. But the speed of the cars stays the same. That doesn't mean that your audio is going to be faster as on a USB 2 connection. Yeah. So this is a common mistake, that people think that Thunderbolt or USB 3 is much faster as USB 2. So that's one thing.
And I think that's the interesting part about our RME interface is that we try to find not only the best performance for the interface, but also the best, so to speak, price per channel. So I think that's interesting because it wouldn't make sense. We have a lot of questions about the Babyface Pro FS or the ADI2 Pro, for example, having those equipped with Thunderbolt. But for this amount of channels, which is not very much, it wouldn't make any sense to have those equipped with like a high bandwidth connection like Thunderbolt or anything else. So we stick to USB 2. It's stable, it's reliable, and it's very cost efficient for you guys, so you don't have to pay a lot more.
So let's just have as an example, have a look at USB 2 and USB 3. USB 2 and USB 3. So if you have a USB 2 connection and you RME can transport up to 70 channels in and out of your computer without any problems, and even in a very, very low latency. Actually, we're the fastest in the market when it comes to latency on USB 2. Now, the only time when you need USB 3, you would have more than 70 channels. Yeah, for instance, UFX Plus or Multiphase XT, they have USB 3, and they are there. If you need that, you can even use that in USB 2 if you need less than 70 channels. Doesn't matter. But if you need more than 70 channels, you need USB 3 or Thunderbolt or a PCI Express. But again, there is no difference in latency between USB 2 and USB 3. Yeah, it's a very thing to so. Even if you buy a USB-C interface in the market and you're connected to your new Mac, you still have a USB 2 connection. Yeah? So it's all it's quite how you say verwarrend. Can I get the word to have all these connections. So. Okay, now a little bit about latency explained. So if you have a computer and you have an interface, in this case it's on the picture, it's a Multiphase XT, and in schematics it looks like this. I am the musician, I have a microphone, I have the input of my interface, it's going to the audio interface, it's going through my USB connection in my computer, it's in my DAW. I have plugins here. It's being recorded, and again it goes out of my DAW, again in my interface, and back in the DA, digital analog converter, so I can hear myself. Yeah. So here, this takes time. Yeah. So and the time. The most of the latency is happening in your computer, yeah, because of storing, buffering, a lot of other technologies happening in your computer. Now, sometimes it's very disturbing to have this latency. If you are a very sensitive musician or you have a bad interface and you have a lot of latency, you cannot play because of the latency, because the audio arrives way too late here. So in this case, a lot of interfaces and also RME interfaces offer a shortcut. Yeah, so your audio is not going through your computer, but is going directly again to your loudspeaker. So you don't have any latencies. You have direct monitoring, and this is important for later on if we're going to explain TotalMix FX.
I have a question. Some of the users in the chat room are asking whether or not some of the interfaces have different latencies. So there is a Babyface Pro owner, and he asks if one of the higher end, so to speak, interfaces to have a better performance in terms of latency.
Not when you compare it to RME. The latency of your interface, as I said before, is mainly happening in your computer. So if your computer is faster, if your driver is better, if you have a higher and you have a faster interface, it means that the speed of analog conversion and digital to analog conversion, yes, you can reduce latency. So it's the whole package which can reduce your latency.
Okay.
I
Yes,
hope that answers the
totally,
question.
completely answers the question.
Okay, now something to be relative about with latency itself. some people say, okay, I can't work with 4 or 6 milliseconds of latency. It's way too it's way too far. But if you think about it, the speed of sound. So if you sit in front of a speaker, you have the sound travels for 1 meter of seconds through the air. So already that your audio arrives at your ears, 3 milliseconds are gone. So if you're like 1 meter away from your speakers, you already have 3 milliseconds extra. So this is very important to think about when you're not buying interface, because it has 7 or 8 milliseconds of latency. But therefore we have direct monitoring. So if you have a problem with latency, you can always solve it with direct monitoring. So let's have an example of an interface setup with RME. Yeah, you have for this example, I choose a Fireface 802, and every interface has inputs. For instance, your microphone inputs and headphones outputs, line level outputs, digital outputs, line level inputs, and you have several computer connections, MIDI in, out, etc. Just for your information, if you're using a USB connection here, you need to install the USB driver from our website. And if you're using a FireWire connection, you need to install the FireWire driver. Now, if I'm going to my typical setup, what can I do with my interface? I have my interface connected, of course, it's connected to my computer. It's connected to the speakers. It's connected to the computer on display. You can connect an ARC USB to the computer to remote control your speakers. Of course, you can add some headphones. You can add some B speakers to an extra output. Of course, your 4 times a mic. You can even use a special an own preamp. All of our preamps of RME are universal, so you don't have to bypass the preamp, for instance. You can have inserts for your favorite compressor, your favorite analog effect, whatever you need. MIDI in, out in the back directly on the device. And you can add even more devices with the ADAT input. So even up to 16 channels you can add to the ADAT input.
There's a question about the headphone input, the headphone output, sorry. If there is any latency on the headphone output. Okay.
We'll come later to that. That's what I will explain when I go to the explanation of TotalMix FX. Sorry, I'll just go back a little bit. So I have all these devices connected, and I need to have a signal flow to all those connections, and it can be very complicated. But that's what we have TotalMix FX for. That's our software, which comes with the driver, so you don't have to download it separately. If you install the driver, TotalMix FX comes with the driver. It's installed automatically. Well, TotalMix FX is set up like this. This is the 2-row channel layout. I have all the hardware inputs that I just saw before on the 802, and I have software playback. Everything that is coming from your software, YouTube, Logic, whatever you need is coming here in your software playback, and I can route that to my hardware outputs. This is the default view of TotalMix. It's actually the same, but just in a different view. So you have your hardware outputs in the top, you have your software playback in the middle, and your hardware outputs in the bottom. And then we have a separate mode, and that is called the DAW mode. Now with the DAW mode, I don't have a software playback in the middle. I have only hardware inputs and only hardware outputs. That means, for instance, if I don't need any direct monitoring because I'm working in the box, I have my software synths and I have my plugins, then you can use this mode because it makes life more simple, and all the DAW, all the routing is done in your DAW. I will show that also later on.
So and this will
is
also answer the question for many guys that are asking why the DAW mode has no direct monitoring, or why there is not the latency benefits, right?
Yes, that is correct. So now we come to the, so this is how it looks in real life. So we have your hardware inputs here, you have your software playback, you have your hardware outputs on the bottom row. And in the DAW mode, I only have hardware inputs and hardware outputs. And as you can see, I have no fader. I will show you that live in a second. So we also have TotalMix Remote, but it's out of scope now. I just go switch now to the live demo. So here I have my TotalMix of my baby face, and I have my baby face settings. Normally, you don't have to do a lot for here. The only thing that you see is EQ for record here. You have clocking possibilities if you want to connect digital devices here. So, but we will do that in a later webinar about clocking. That's a whole different topic. And we have EQ for record. So if I want to apply the EQ for my TotalMix that I have here, then I can EQ for record, and this EQ is being recorded on your in your DAW. So this way I can choose if I want to have this because I like the sound of it, or I do all the EQing in the post-production and then I switch this off. So again, what do we have here? We have our two microphone inputs here. We have instrument and high Z inputs. We have digital inputs over here. Just have a look at our hardware input. You have this wrench here, and you can open it up, and you see a few functions. Now, I have a test tone generator connected on my analog input 1, and it needs phantom power like a condenser mic, so I can give it phantom power, and I see I have a signal here. Now this is very important. If you have a signal here, the signal is really present. TotalMix is a remote control of your interface, so it's direct communicating with the hardware. So if I see a signal here, it's really there. Yeah. Now I can already start recording. Yeah, I could open up any new project, and I'd leave this open, and I do an audio create, and I can start recording here on my analog number. Oh, sorry, I have to choose the other interface. Baby face. Oh, apply. So now you already see that I have a signal here. I can immediately start recording. So without TotalMix, just giving a signal in TotalMix here, I don't have to move the fader, nothing at all. If I have an input in TotalMix, I can start recording. Yeah. So this is where it starts. So, and I have a recording of a test tone. Now back to TotalMix. Now we come to direct recording. So and routing in TotalMix. If I want to route in TotalMix, the easiest way is to have the submix mode here activated. Yeah, I can do the free mode. I will come later to that, but the submix mode is easier to understand. In the submix mode, I have to go to the bottom of the interface and choose the channel which I want to monitor. For instance, I want to monitor anything. I want to monitor something in my phones. Okay, what do I want to hear in my phones? Well, I want to hear my test tone, and I select the test tone, and now I have an output on my phones. That is easy. Now, in this case, the audio goes directly from the input to my headphones output. Yeah, so in this way I have direct monitoring and zero latency. Yeah. So if I don't want this, and I said, okay, well, I want to hear the effects from my DAW, I can switch this off. I can select software monitoring for DAW, and you see that I have now software monitoring. Yeah, it's not the hardware monitoring. It's not there because it's here. So you can choose between software monitoring with latency, so or hardware monitoring without latency. Yeah? Now, in most cases, the direct monitoring. So if you want to record instruments, microphones, whatever you want to hear, the direct monitoring is sufficient because any DAW has latency compensation. That means if you play to the music that you hear in your software playback, and you record that, the audio is aligned in your in your DAW, and you never notice that you have any latency at all. Any questions about that,
Yes,
Adrian?
quite a lot actually. We have one question regarding the DAW mode, where to find and what the benefits are. I think that is quite interesting. But there's also another question. If we use the EQ for recording and dynamics for recording, if this option is activated, if this also means that we will record the reverb and the echo and stuff like that.
No, not the echo. It's possible, but it's in a different. You can do it in a different way. Actually, I think that on the baby phase, you have a separate channel for reverb and effects. So there you can record it separately. But there is also a different way, which I will not explain right now. You can also route it to an output, add the effects, and loop back, and then record this channel. But that's out of the
By the
scope for
way,
now.
we did a video series about Loopback and how you can record all these sounds into your DAW. So, guys, if you take a look at our playlists and our YouTube channel, and you maybe search in the channel directly for the word Loopback or effect recording in TotalMix FX, you will find the video where everything is explained about Loopback and how you can record the delay and the echo with your DAW. And another question we have is about the Babyface Pro. Sorry?
Let me first go to the DAW mode.
Okay.
Yeah, answer that question, and then we go to the next question. So the DAW mode is you have to restart TotalMix FX. You go to operational mode. You click on it, and you select the digital workstation mode. Now, look here. If I have a direct monitoring right now. Now I will restart my digital audio workstation mode. Okay, I have to quit TotalMix, restart it. And now the DA. So I have to select this now for that you can hear me, because I'm using the UFX Plus. I will switch back later. So now you can hear me. Now you see that there is no hardware input here, and I always have to activate the software monitoring, so I always have latency. Yeah. So I will now switch this back to to my full mode, otherwise you can't hear me anymore.
Oh, and by the way, can you show for some of the people? Actually, we have for the first episode we have over 70 viewers. So thank you very much for that. Some of those users would like to see where to find the EQ plus dynamics for record option.
Okay, well that's over here, where you open up the settings and you can activate here the EQ for dynamic and record. So now I'm going to switch back to the full mode and switch my audio back, because otherwise I can't hear myself. 1 second, please.
So guys, for all you wondering right now, Joost has to switch the interface again. So there are some questions why the audio has dropped out. Probably I should still talk, and then you guys are not that confused.
So let me just check this.
So by the way, we have a lot of questions about hardware integration. Guys, bear with me. We will have a video series about hardware integration and hardware inserts and sound effects probably in 2 weeks from now on. So you will see how you can integrate your hardware effects directly in TotalMix FX.
So I'm back. As you can see, I also have a Fireface UFX Plus here connected. Yeah, you can connect multiple interfaces to one computer without any, but you can just switch the TotalMix window. Yeah, so you can use that parallel, but we stick to the Babyface Pro right now. So so far now I have my software playback. I switch it off again. So now we have routing. There is also a very important thing about this part here. It's your control room. Some people want to have a second speaker, or they want to have the main, or they want to have an extra headphones output. You can all do that here in Assign. Yeah, if my main out, this fader here, I can assign that to my analog 1, 2. But I can also choose it as phones 3, 4. Then my phones will disappear and analog 1, 2 will appear here. So you're completely flexible in assigning your control room. Yeah, I can add an extra phones. So now I have an extra phones. I can add, as I saw on the drawing with the 802, I can add an extra speaker. Yeah, so now I can connect an extra B speaker, and I select B speaker, and it will switch. The signal will be switched to the speakers. For instance, if you do it like this, so I select to my output, select my signal over there, I switch speaker, and you see that the signal will be switched to your second speaker. So this can all be remote controlled, also with an ArcUSB, and it can also be assigned on your Babyface, like this. You go to Options, you go to Arc and Key Commands, and there you see the functions that now are set on your Babyface. Yeah, for instance, there is an A button here, and I can assign this button to any function that I have in TotalMix, which is here. For instance, speaker B. I know it's there. There, speaker B. So now my A button on my I press it, and
Maybe I
can
show
switch.
it into the camera because I have the ARC USB with me. Guys, that's what it looks like. Indispensable tool, I would say. Amazing tool. Do all my mixing and my routing and my headphone and monitor controls with that one. Plus, you have the option to control your snapshots. We will come back to the snapshots and what they do. And of course, you can mono your main out, have an external input, or you can freely assign the buttons. So really, really cool tool for all your RME interfaces out there. So back to Joost now.
So this is the control room. A very important function, which is often it's a little bit of a secret in TotalMix FX, is that you can right mouse click these channels. Yeah. So if I right mouse click these channels, you get a few options here, and I can clear the mix. So if I will do that, the mix will be clear on my main out. But I can also copy mirror main out. Yeah. That means now if for instance, if I want to have always the same signal on my headphones as my main out, because now in this case I have to route my audio again, and I have to do it for this input, and I have to do it again, and I have to select them all. Now if I just say copy mirror out and I go to mirror output main, I always have the same signal as my main out. You see, I can't select it anymore. It's all gray. It's like one channel. Yeah, I still can adjust the level, but the mix is the same. If I now take the mix down from my test tone, the audio is gone in my main mix, in my speakers and in my phones. Yeah? Now, these Adrian already noticed that we have like snapshots here. Yeah, you can have major, really complicated setups with mixes. You can have all these settings done for every channel, and you don't know how it's done anymore. You can just store this set completely. Yeah, so I just say now, okay, I call this. I store this at number 1, and I can give it a name by double clicking the mix one. I call it start. Now it has a name. Now if I do something wrong, I can always go back into the state that it was. Yeah. So the whole mix is being stored in snapshots. Now there is another way to store the settings of your mixer, but it will be a global store of your whole mixer, and that is done in workspaces. As you can see here at File, you have snapshots. So you not only have snapshots here in the TotalMix, you can also load a snapshot from a file. But we also have workspaces. If you save a workspace as, you completely store the settings of your mixer, how it looks like, all the settings, the B speakers, the mix, everything, all the presets. So the snapshots are stored into workspaces. Yeah? Those workspaces are also direct recallable or direct configurable if you press the W button. Then you can also store workspaces in here. Yeah? So you can have different, a complete storage of your setups in directly into TotalMix FX. Maybe a question?
Yes. There are some questions, but they are more have to do with the DSP options. Why some of the interfaces have more or less DSP power, especially the Babyface Pro. Why the Babyface Pro lacks of compressors or the dynamic section.
Yes, that is a history behind it. First Babyface, we wanted to be bus powered. That means that the Babyface can only have a limited amount of power to run on. And we at that time we already had the UCX, which already had effects, and it has dynamics inside. Just for power reasons, just for bus power reasons, to have not enough power, we reduced the DSP on the Babyface so that it still can be bus powered. And the way we did it is to have a smaller DSP chip inside and do the effects, the reverb are being calculated on the device. With all other interfaces, and I have an overview over here in my presentation. They have enough DSP on board where they have dynamics and effects on board. So that's a little bit of a difference. So at this, here you can see the overview. 802 UFX, UFX2, UFX Plus, UCX. They have the full all the effects on board. Babyface Pro FS, MightyFace Pro. They don't have the dynamics. MightyFace XT again has all the effects, and it's just a matter of available power for the interface. Okay, let's go back to TotalMix again. We also have the possibility, if you want to do things in groups. So I want to take down. Where's my baby face? There. I give it. Select it again. Give it power. The gain of your microphone input is always in the channel with all the interfaces. It's in some. It can be in the settings window, but normally it's in your TotalMix FX set. Now, for instance, if I have a multi-channel, if I have an well, let's whatever surround setup, for instance, yeah. So I have multiple channels which have audio out, and so I have, for instance, now a surround setup, yeah, left, right, center, sub, left, side, back. So, of course, if I want to turn down the volume, I want to do that all at once. So here I have the possibility to make a fader group. So I just select Edit, I select the color, and I select the faders that I want to add to my fader group. Now, when I turn down the, if I turn down the master of my baby face, all the faders go down, and you have like a fader group. Yeah, this can be very handy, of course, can be surround setups, maybe some effect sense. If you want a different group and you want to mute all the effect sense, you should just take down the fader group. You can also do that with solo. So you want to listen to different solo groups at once. You can put them into a group, and now if you choose the solo group, you see at my master where it's a PFL. Now I'm listening to those empty silent channels. Nothing is there, but I listen to all three of them. So you can also group solo channels. I also have, you can also do the same with mute group. Yeah, you can do the same trick with the mute channels. I select a mute group and I add them, and now they're muted and now they're not muted. So this way I can, and I can do it all from top to bottom, doesn't matter. Now there is another field over here. There are the layouts. I can completely adapt my TotalMix window. As we saw in the presentation, I can switch to TotalMix, to 2-row. That means my software playback in here will move up to there on the right side, and I already have a smaller window. Now, if I have a smaller laptop or whatever I can even change the size of my window. You can make it as small as you want. Yeah. Now, this is only size, but it's not like really small to look at. So I still want to keep this view. I can make a channel layout. I don't need all those channels over here, and I don't need all those channels over here. Nothing is connected there, so I just want to hide them. So you go to Options, Channel Layout, and you say, okay, I have my inputs, I have my playbacks, I have my outputs. Now I don't want to see the digital channels in my inputs, and I don't want to see those digital channels in my software playback, and in my outputs I leave everything there as it is because I need it because of my surround output. Then I say okay, sorry, I did something wrong. I have to deselect it. So again, inputs, so hide them for the mixer, playbacks, hide them in the mixer, and I leave the output as it is, and I say okay. Now I see it's already smaller again, so I can already make my TotalMix window again smaller. Now I can store this this layout what I've made now in here. So I say layout store number 1, and it's like the small layout. Now if I touch another layout, I have all the channels back again and everything is there. If I press the small one, all the channels will hide again, and I can also switch to two mode again, and I have a very small TotalMix FX window. Any
Yes,
questions?
quite a lot. So the first question,
Okay, shoot.
The first question is about the very famous S and F button over the viewing options in TotalMix FX. You mean the mute button, the solo
M.
button?
Oh, this one here.
Exactly.
Yes, these are the master mutes. That means if I disable it, I can yeah, it's something with a master mute. You can completely disable the mutes if you want it, or not having the mutes activated globally. Yeah. So if I disable it, this mute is now not on. So, for instance, you see it's still working. Here my input channel is still going to my output. Now if I enable it again, my output disappears. The same, it works the same for solo. Yeah, if I solo this, you will. It's going back now to here to the. I have to do it again. I'll do it differently, otherwise you don't see the difference. So I have to take it out. I take it out. Then you only hear this channel. It's difficult to show now, but you have to hear it. So, but it works the same as the master mute. There is actually a different way if you're using your as a live in a live environment, and you want to listen PFL because now it's a solo function. You can assign the QPFL. Sorry, you can go to options, settings, and live mode here. So now it's not called solo again, it's called PFL, pre-fade listening. That means if I have my fader down and I want to listen to the signal I can activate pre-fade listening and I can listen to it because it's going to my control room. Yeah, so this is also a great function in TotalMix FX. Next question?
Yes, we have some questions if there are any updates planned on TotalMix FX. Guys, TotalMix FX is constantly being updated. Sometimes you don't recognize that, but maybe you want to check out, for the Mac users out there, the new version of DigiCheck, which is out since yesterday, I believe. So you can check that out in the forums. And apart from that, we have a lot of questions about surround. And yes, TotalMix FX can be fully surround compatible. Probably we should do an own masterclass about this, right?
Yeah, it's actually what I already explained.
Yeah.
If you have, so if I go back to my full view of my normal layout. So for instance, if I have a program with surround sound, all my audio is coming into my software playbacks. For instance, whatever, it doesn't matter, you can route it anywhere. I have this channel, those 5.1 channels over here, and what I can do is that I make a fader group from this one, a separate one, and I say, okay, this is my surround sound, and I can even can link that to no, it's going to be complicated, but can link that to an extra phones channel or whatever. I can take a phone channel, but I'm not using as an output, yeah, but I just use it as a link fader. So I select my fader group. Hello. I have to do it differently, I'm sorry. Fader group, blue one, blue, and an unused phones channel. Oh, come on.
We have another request. Maybe you can show, because this fits to actually what you're doing, to show how we could set up a mono output, a mono speaker output.
Yes. A mono speaker output, yes. Well, first of all, there is a mono switch here, but that's of course then your signal is going to be mono. If you want to have a mono speaker output, let me just clean up here a little bit. None. And for instance, I have an ADAT. It doesn't matter that this is now a digital output, but it works the same. I can switch the output to mono. Now I have two separate mono outputs. Now, if I have any signal, I again, like in the stereo mix, I just can select the channel, and I can route my audio to there. Now the signal is going only to one channel. Yeah, you see already that the stereo channels are panned to right, so it will take the left side. If I select ADAT4, you will watch the pan. It will switch to the other side. But again, if I already have a mono channel here, and it's not a stereo channel, I can route it separately to my second mono out. So you can make as many mono outs as you want.
Cool. Yes, I think we have forgot what the F means in TotalMix FX. The F button.
Yeah, I sorry, I have to get back on that. I totally forgot. I never use it. We come back to that. I sorry, I don't have the. That's the one thing I don't know about this one.
But guys, we will do a video about. I mean, so many questions right now about how to integrate hardware and how to integrate external hardware gear. We will do that, and in 2 weeks from now, bear with us. We will do this video. But another question: if you can bypass the microphone preamps in our interfaces. You already said that there is a sort of like bypass functionality.
Yes, RME preamps are universal. That means whatever signal you put in, it's always adapted to the signal. If you have your own preamp and you want to bypass the preamp, actually you don't bypass it, but it doesn't matter anymore because the electronics are so developed that that there is no alteration in the signal if you're going through the preamp. But you just take down the phantom power and the gain, and you can use this now as a line input. Easy as that. Even if you have a very hot signal, you can even do a 20 dB pad, and you can even lower the signal. So you can just connect it directly to the input without and use the preamp of your choice. That's no problem at
Can
all.
you show that again? I forgot to share your screen.
Okay. Well, let me start. Now I have something connected. A microphone. Yeah, it's a test signal, and I have a gain up here. If I want to connect a microphone preamp, I switch off the phantom power, of course, and I take down the gain. Now I can connect a signal to my input. Now, if the preamp is very hot, it means it has a very high signal. You can even pad the signal, so you can lower the signal without a loss of quality. That's how you connect a different preamp to a baby face.
Yeah, great.
Okay.
And that's really cool right now because Ghost VJ Productions. Thanks for taking the time. He found he read the manual. So the F button adds the selected fader to the temporary fader group. So that's the function F.
That's why I never use it.
So thank you so much for helping us out.
Thank you. I never use temporary fader groups.
Yeah, sometimes we get lost in other features. Yeah. But yes, so thanks again for the many questions. And the next question is, what does the pad button do with the mic channels?
Oh, it just lowers the signal, the input signal, the input signal. So if you have like if I would phantom power the gain anymore, and I would have a very, very hot signal, it's disturbing, I can just take it down like 20 dB. Yeah. So it just pads the signal a little bit more. You see? And actually, if you do it, it's hardware. It's not in software. It's a hardware pad. If you do it, you can hear it. You hear the clicking. That's my mouse and the baby face that clicks. So it's a real high quality pad.
Yes. Yes,
Yes?
I got it too. So I was just talking to myself. So, yes, a lot of questions, but they are just all circled around the same. Yes, maybe we can show how we would set up a recording of the effects channels. I mean, this is just loopback and return channel, but maybe you can show that.
Okay. So we had this channel here at the other one, where it is untitled. So now you see now that I have mic line in here. This is my mic line. Yeah, this is a direct recording of the input. Our TotalMix has a different possibility to get input into your DAW. And that is Loopback. Let me just clean this up a little bit. Clear submix. I'll make it a little bit bigger. Now, if I have if I want to add for instance, my phone, or whatever, I take my ADAT signal and I route my effects there. I can add EQ, yeah, and I do some adjustments, and I do it like this. Now it will arrive here at my ADAT output with those effect settings. I can add some reverb. I can open up the reverb. Now you see that I have reverb coming in and coming out. It's a little bit because the stereo image looks like this, and if I want to return that input, I have to put this fader on. Now I would hear, if I could, I cannot show it to you acoustically, but now the effects are also here on the on this output. Now there's a very important function in all of these output channels, and that is loopback. If I select loopback, the signal is going to be routed back to the inputs, to the current inputs. So A.56 will go to A.56. You don't see it here at the hardware output. This signal is only valid if you have something connected to the input. So this loopback signal is going directly back to the software. Now I go to the software and I choose something else, and I say I take for now on purpose the wrong input, and nothing is there. Now I choose the input, stereo input, and I choose the input A.dat, what we have, 5.6, right? Now you see that I get the signal of A.dat 5.6. Now I can show you, I can prove it to you that that is the output. So with all the EQ setting, all the effects, I can even do a master effect here. But if I take this fader down, it's going to be also to be down in the in your DAW. So this way you can just make your mix and record that mix with effects and everything to your DAW.
Yes.
I think that's clear, right?
Okay, another question is how the dim button functions and whether or not the dim button can be used for the headphones as well.
Yes, you can have you can of course you can assign your main out to your phones, and then you have the dim button also on your phones. Yeah. So, and even if you want to have them all connected, you make a fader group again, because they all put together. So these are linked together because it's a B speaker. So if I make this fader group again and I do dim, everything is dimmed. So you can apply dim also to your fader group. Yeah? So you are completely flexible in programming this dim and all the functions that will follow the master fader.
Great. Okay, I think we're set. We're now 1 hour running. I think we can stop it for today, right? So guys, thank you so much for being with us today. I mean, for the first time, it was a bit clunky at first for us. It's our first time to do a live stream. Really cool that it worked out, and we're so happy that, we had a median of 75 viewers today, so thank you so much. We'll try to make this live stream also available on the YouTube channel, and we will announce the future dates probably next week. So we'll try to make this a constant and a regular episode for all of you guys out there. So thank you so much, and see you next time.
Wait. If people still have questions, and they can send on the RME Facebook page.
Yeah.
And we are here with a small team to answer all those questions. So if you have like specific questions or you don't know the solution, just write us a private mail to either on the RME Facebook page, or you can use the normal support mail stated at our website.
Yes. And we also have last question was about the buffer size. If there is a perfect buffer size for your interface, for your setup.
Well, there is a general rule. If you need low latency because you're tracking with effects and with plugins, you need to go down with your latency as low as possible as your computer can handle. If you're tracking, so if you're mixing, or if you're tracking and you're using direct monitoring, you can use a very high buffer size because your computer has not to work so hard. So you can do, it's a more reliable recording than if you have a higher buffer size. Lower the buffer size will increase your CPU power. A higher buffer size, you have a higher latency but less CPU power. So that's the choice you have to make. So there's for every situation there is a good buffer size.
Yes. So generally, when you try to record, lower buffer size. When you try to mix, higher buffer size.
Yes, it depends a little bit. If you're doing direct monitoring, you can also use a higher buffer size.
Yeah.
Because you're not hearing the latency of your DAW, and you're just using the monitoring of TotalMix FX. Yeah. Only if you have like synthes and you want to use instrument plugins or you want to use effects in your DAW, then you have to decrease the buffer size so you have less latency.
Yeah. So thank you so much for being with us today. If you have any ideas what we should do a masterclass about, maybe the ADI2 Pro, Babyface Pro FS, the DigiCheck, the new version, maybe that one, we're open to help you out, guys. So write us a comment under this video, or you can just write the support as Joost mentioned, and see you next time. Joost, thank you so much for staying with us today.